Charles.
All right, here we go. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to come before you all today. This is our continuation of the Let's Talk About Race podcast. Um, but today we're going to provide a little spin in terms of the direct correlation between, of course, dealing with race issues in reference to the hip hop community, and specifically the impact that hip hop has on the culture, and of course, specifically within Black folks, not even within this country, but of course, on the impact that it has around the world. So to have this conversation, I have two intelligent men who I hold in the highest esteem. Do you just want to jump in and just give a quick hello, quick let the folks know who you are, and I guess you could also talk about specifically what hip hop means to you.
I'm gonna let Sundiata go first this time.
Okay.
Now you can go first.
See, I knew you were
Okay.
gonna do this. We're gonna have this thing all the time. Fine. Age before beauty. I'll go.
And then before you go, like I know I said this, the last time, but we have a official B-boy and Lew Gettleman, and to his credit, he's actually provided the knowledge into his son, and his son is an official B-boy now as well. Puts on various shows all throughout the world, like literally. He's doing big things. So my fault, Lew. Go ahead, man.
It's okay. Give big props to the white man. We need it.
There he
On a
is.
serious note, my name's Lew. 70 years old. I've been listening to this stuff since it broke, and watched it grow and spiral in many different directions. And I think we'll talk tonight about what's the strengths and weaknesses of today's stuff. But basically, hip hop broke open the mold on everything. It just broke open the mold, and challenged culture, art, style, all kinds of ways that it spoke to people. That's what it did. That's why. And particularly in the beginning, it was the people's art. That's who it was. And we can get into later how it can get co-opted, but that doesn't take away that it's still the people's art. And it reflects their anger, their aspirations, their love, their happiness. It just did. It's just like, damn, that's me up there. Now, not me personally, but that's me up there.
Right.
That's me. That's my music without making any vanilla ice shit. It was, so that's the way I feel about it. And the only thing I want to say about it is being, and because I think it is important to say, being a white person, I understand that it doesn't reflect me in the same way, but in the way that it reflects an anger and a wanting things to be different and being accepted as who you are, that can speak to all of us. That speaks to all of us. And nobody's got flow like hip hop. They just don't. There's no flow better than hip hop.
I think that was a double entendre, right? I mean, I like that. I like that, man. You like that? I like that.
And I like that you use double entendre because we know our audience can understand what we're talking about. We're not afraid to use big words.
My man.
Hip hop for me was it's a culture, that I was raised in. Well, I won't say raised in, because like my mother didn't teach it to me. You know what I mean? But the community and the times that I grew up in, that was the voice of that time that was growing. I came in at its inception. I was young and not as young as it, but I was break dancer and then went into other parts of hip hop, the culture of hip hop, and then eventually got around to MCing. So for me, I fell in love with it because, like Lew said, it was the voice of the people. It was the voice of people who didn't really have a voice, you know what I mean, or who weren't getting their voices heard in the way that they wanted it to be heard. So when hip hop came around, it had that energy, had power, that God force within it. It spoke from our past. I think it was our ancestors speaking through us in certain forms, the rhythms, um, the thoughts from some of the earliest, well, some of our best poets are definitely, I would say, Akashic memory transmitting
Mm.
from our ancient ancestors, bringing it up to here. Now, what's been done with it, like Lew said, that's a whole nother conversation. But the love of it came from what it actually was to me, and that was a positive form of culture. And like I said in our last conversation, I see it as the Osiris of music,
Mm.
the Osar of music, where it brings forms of music that may not be that popular anymore, but it brings them back into people being able to hear them, hear the rhythms and appreciate them, and then hear mixed in with other stuff and the DJing and scratching, and you know what I mean? So it's just a wonderful thing.
Mm. So to piggyback
Which
that,
gets
so
me.
if Osiris is a hip hop, so what's the counterpoint? So what's the ISIS to hip hop, man? So what's the counterpart?
You know what I mean? It's interesting because I guess the hip would be a star and the hop would be our set. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying? Because there's one together, yin and yang together. Hip
Right.
hop shows the worst of us. It shows what we deal with, our pain, our struggle. But it
Mm.
also shows our brilliance. It shows our resilience. It shows, our creativity. So it's that whole yin and yang thing. It's everything involved. You get the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm. Mm. And Lew, I'm going to give you some pushback in terms of you saying you as a white man and you feel like you may not represent hip hop. I think either your true embodiment of hip hop, if folks really know you the way I know you, and of course, Sundiata knows you in terms of who you are and the work you've done in terms of hoping to just revolutionize and change all the negative aspects of racism and white supremacy and all the negative ills, which represents this historical sin that America continues to perpetuate. Your life has been to destroy these evils, man. So you represent the true embodiment of, I feel like, what birthed hip hop. You know what I mean? Just in terms of individuals, just wanting to have a voice and to really speak to what's going on in their communities and hoping to make a change, man. So you represent that embodiment of everything that you've done, brother. So that's a little pushback for you, my man.
I
What does
appreciate
hip
it.
hop mean to you, Charles?
Right. So, as we spoke about, during our last build, for me, the connection of hip hop it really hits home, as I was telling you all, I could recall my earliest memories of hip hop, going back to when, just hanging out with my father, may he rest in power, just hanging out with him, with his friends and, just being with him with, Grandmaster Flash, just like blasting, and all these songs and just having a good time, and those songs, I'll never forget them, the message and just various other songs, just it represents my entry specifically into hip hop, so from there, of course, it pretty much saved my life in a lot of ways, just in terms of, and folks, a lot of people don't take this into account, just the intellect of these artists and all the various works of literature that they present in their songs. It pretty
Right.
much gave me my knowledge of self. So I'm hearing all these songs and I'm hearing, different references to various people and various references of work. And it's just like, man, I want to delve into that. And specifically from hip hop, that sort of like sprang forth my love for Malcolm X, who of course represents my idol, and in lieu of course of his passing February 21st, it's just, it just comes full circle for me, just in terms of hip hop providing that connection and reference point into just literary genius, that various artists just display on a, continuous basis. For me, I like to call it the golden age of hip hop. Of course, I know you older gentlemen like to, perhaps even, delve a little bit before the 90s, but for me, that 90s era represents the golden age in terms of providing that link, of course, between, the old school and then, of course, bridging the gap in terms of, just sharpening of that pen I think of Rakim, KRS-One and Rakim just sort of providing that conscious focus. You know, KRS-One, of course, providing the political aspect, but just in terms of like just sharpening, just putting words together and just creating powerful messages. You know, KRS-One and Rakim, you know, sort of, you know, comes to my mind at first. And then, you know, that moving into, you know, Tribe Called Quest and, of course, Fugees and Wu-Tang and Nas and, you know, Outkast and, you know, Ice Cube. I mean, we're talking about, oh my God, just for me, it represents my heart space, you know, in every aspect of the word, man. And it continues, you know, for better or for worse, to just be, you know, influential throughout all facets of our society. Oftentimes for the worse, and I guess we'll talk about that at some point. But with that said, I guess, you know, quickly for you all, you know, just thinking about, I guess, the influence that hip hop, you know, has across all facets. Do you think specifically in reference to the Black community, do you feel that there's a responsibility with artists in terms of the images that's portrayed within the music and, of course, the message that's portrayed in the music? Do you feel like artists have a responsibility to sort of project a positive influence within their music?
Go ahead, Lou.
Why is it always gotta be me? Why can't you go first? Now everybody knows I'm a jokester. They've passed laws now. You all can sit in the front of the bus now, so I don't always have to go first, but I will anyway. I think it's a very difficult thing. Yes, I think it should be positive images. What I don't like is that every Black artist is called upon to represent his community and talk about social justice and blah. I think if you want to, you should, and it's a really good thing. But white artists aren't asked the same thing. So if you're just, you know, again, we kind of hit it on this. If you're Biggie Smalls, that's just some flat out beautiful flow and lyrics. No, Biggie wasn't really speaking to all the, he ain't Immortal Technique. He's not Public Enemy. And some of it's not positive, but it's still really good. So I think that's one thing. I do think about the, you know, the real, you know, for lack of a better way to say it, kind of sexist stuff and misogynist stuff that happens. And actually, Charles, I sent you that video of those Black women comedians talking about some of that. It's a very contradictory thing. I don't know how to hold it all. So I'm going to say one last thing, and then I'm going to drop it off to someone. Sexuality in this country has been so, you know, is Anglo-European, you know, you shouldn't be sexual at all, right? Like you're supposed to wear, you're not, you know, don't show nothing. And then there's the flip side of being sexual and in your body, and you should be proud of it. So I don't know where the lines always are, but in my gut, I'm going to quote Justice Earl Warren. When they asked him about pornography, he said, I can't define it, but when I see it, I know it. There's some shit out there that when I see it, it's like, no, and no, like, no. But I don't know where the line is. I'll leave that to you all.
So we're kind of talking about, rephrase that, if you will.
Yes, sir. So in reference to, you know, we speak about the influence that hip hop has had directly on us. Pretty much it sort of represents who we are at this point as individuals. So I guess my question is in reference to the influence that hip hop has pretty much over society as we speak. Do you feel in reference to, in particular, the Black community, is there responsibility for artists to sort of project a positive image or positive music? Do you feel that artists should have that responsibility?
I think, you know, it's funny. I'm sort of twisted on that one too. I feel like art, it should be art. Art is supposed to be an expression of different things. You don't have to always make a point. It doesn't always have to be positive. Art can be expressed in many, many different forms. Now, with that being said, I feel like hip hop is so integral with our culture and our times and the way that we do things. It's almost a reflection. It is a reflection of real life. And sometimes it's almost the real deal itself. Therefore, I feel like we almost have a certain, almost like a civic responsibility within hip hop to, you don't have to make everything like X-Clan or Poor Righteous Teachers or a Public Enemy where you bang, bang, bang hardcore with the science. But I think there is a certain amount of dignity that should be upheld. Like we are setting forth images to our communities, messages, and their vibrations, words on top of vibrations, which are super powerful magic tools. And so, if we allow ourselves to, portray the wrong things and go too far for such a damaged people mentally, what I mean? I think we have to think these things through. It's not, I look at white people and I say, they're damaged too through racism, but they're dealing with a different set of problems. What I mean? When I say a different set, it's like they don't look in the mirror and say, I hate myself because I look like this. Many of us do this. You know what I'm saying? Subconsciously, some of you out your mouth, you know what I mean? Oh, I can't stand my hair like this, or you hear sisters, I wish I looked like that, or whatever. So we got issues. I think we have to be a little bit, everything don't have to be positive, but I think everything should be progressive to an extent, for us to come out from where we are. I don't know. It's a tough question. What do you think?
Man, you said it there. And I think the one word that resonates with me is there should be a dignity with the way you carry yourself. I mean, wow, that sort of took me in a different direction from what I was thinking about. Because even just thinking about, early 90s with the East Coast, West Coast, going through, what they went through. Even before, a little bit before that, in terms of NWA and, F the Police and like all the quote unquote negative things that folks felt like they were saying, when honestly they were just, speaking about what they were going through, as a backdrop in terms of Rodney King and various other issues with the LAPD and with law enforcement in general. But to that point, those brothers and pretty much, the hip hop artists of yesteryear always carried themselves with a sort of dignity, So even if the message wasn't necessarily positive per se, they carried themselves a certain way that you couldn't help but just feel empowered or just want to emulate it, Right. There was just something about the energy that was different. And I was, with some family members a few days ago, and one of my little nephew, I guess he likes, it's Little Uzi Vert or a little something. And this young kid has like a diamond that he sort of had it encrusted in his forehead. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'm gonna send you guys a picture, but pretty much this diamond is worth millions of dollars, and he had it permanently placed on his forehead, and when asked about it, I guess he said, well, that's just me. I do what I want to do, and it's just like, and I guess we're going to talk about in terms of, where we believe hip hop is going. But I guess I do believe that, going back to, the phrase, well, great power comes great responsibility. I do think, artists have a responsibility in terms of teaching the babies, specifically if your overall goal is not only just to make money, but to, make a difference. And I know, various artists, they want to make their money, which is perfectly fine. But I do believe there are most, if not every artist will like to see a change with, within the communities that they came up from. So I think that artists, I think they do have a certain responsibility. It doesn't all have to be positive, to your point, Lew, and hip hop doesn't always have to just project a consciousness per se. They got to keep it real, like everything else. You got to tell the truth. And right. Sometimes the truth isn't positive, right? The truth is what it is, as they say. Yeah, keep it 100, right? But I do think in terms of keeping it 100, you should do it with a certain dignity that I think, unfortunately, a lot of artists now, I don't see that same dignity. And if we could talk to in terms of why that's the case, But I would say, yeah, I do believe there's a certain responsibility for artists in terms of, projecting their artistry to the world.
Yeah, so I just wanted to jump in on that because I'm again in full agreement with the context of what we just said. I do think we've addressed this the last time. This is what capitalism does to any culture, right? They corporatize it. And once
Yes.
they corporatize it, people start selling their music to make money, and you get further and further away. So these young cats coming up, they may not even have any consciousness. They're about, they're about mad money and making a sound that works. And there's not enough, at least at this moment in history, and I think it's a little bit with what went on in the last year or so, a poll that's out there about strong, positive, political, conscious community that's doing other things. So that's ridiculous.
That's little Uzi Vert. Yeah, I couldn't think of his name. So that's a gentleman that had a $24 million
you have to go
diamond
to
encrusted.
Women
Yeah.
got that in India. That's part of their culture. But so
Right.
there's no other poll. So corporate culture has really started to take things over in a way that I'm not taking the blame off of people doing what they do. They still have to take responsibility, but there's no poll out there, not a real strong poll, like, whatever it was, Malcolm, Martin Luther King, the Black Panther Party. There isn't that big poll out there. Even though there's been some movements, there's not that poll out there that people are drawn to it. So again, they still got to take responsibility. But this is, to me, the message about capitalism and corporatism. They will fuck it, and as long as it makes money, they don't care. And I'm going to leave with this, like, they made black athletes, because that's who it was for, get dressed up in the NBA because they look too ghetto, right? All the kids bought all the things they bought.
That was the Iverson backlash.
Exactly. Yep. But the capitalists didn't care because they made money off it. They just sold saggy pants. And I remember, like, when people would sag with the tight ass jeans, that were really tight to them. It's like, they will take whatever the culture has and they will find some way to make money. And the minute they start making money, things all get fucked up.
And to the point, I think that was a turning point. I'm sorry to cut your wisdom, Sundiata, in terms of where hip hop sort of made that turn. And, it's my personal belief, it was sort of a detour in the wrong direction, was the shiny suit era, just in terms of, that puff, that blinged out, shiny suit, money cash holes, I think that's where hip hop sort of began to just lose its soul, in a lot of respects. And again, I'm not about anyone just not wanting to make their money, but I do think, like, to your point, Lew, when you involve money, and with money being the root of evil in a lot of respects, if it's not properly, with the proper mindset used correctly, I think that sort of led to, unfortunately, just what we see, just in terms of hip hop, to me, just losing its, I guess, basic ideals and values and foundations in terms of why it was erected in the first place. The message is totally different now. In fact, I don't even hear the message in terms of, young people even talking about where they came from. Now it's just a matter of just talking about drugs and, right. Just senseless things that really doesn't do any, like, massaging to one's mental at all, So to your point, Lew, I think that's where the crossroads, that's where that sort of detour in hip hop came, when, money was just thrown at these artists and they became, $1 million corporations. They just became a corporation in itself, as opposed to just, representing artistry in its truest form.
One of the things about the capitalist system, like you both have touched on, is that when you have oppressed people who are having problems monetarily, across the board, anything that you put in front of them that's going to make, it's going to help you on a capital end monetarily, it's going to be somewhat powerful. It's hard to stand on principle when somebody's offering you a big lump of money, and it's in a system where it says the more of this you have, the more important you are. The higher your status is, the farther you can go. So when someone says, well, I give you all this money, but I need you to discuss these things here. I need you to portray these things here. And, you got a lot of people like last week, Lew told you to go see Hollywood Shuffle. There's a part in Hollywood Shuffle where there's this sellout brother, and he's talking to Robert Townsend's character. And he was like, man, they got you playing Jimmy. He's like, man, the NAACP gonna come down on this, man. Yeah, man. I don't envy you, but you go ahead, man. Some dudes can do that, you know what I mean? But man, I couldn't play myself like that. But they trying to do with you. He's trying to get in the same movie. Now, the moment that Robert Townsend decides not to do it, this dude jumped in the spot, just like that. And Robert said, you ain't shit. But bottom line was that shiny trinket, spotlight of fame, little wad of money, and new Puma suit. You know what I'm saying? That's enough to move a whole lot of cats.
Right.
When $20, they'll kill you for $20 in certain situations. You know what I'm saying? I've seen people go to war behind $20 to $50, but people with bullets was used. So you're talking about psychosis mixed in with feelings of powerlessness. You got this venue here that I finally can be somebody. I finally can stand and make and have an image that I built myself, and it's cool and acceptable. But then somebody comes along with a bag of money and says, okay, well, I'll tell you what, you keep that image, but I want you to put these things in there too, and I'll give you more money. And then and you got a lot of people that just do it.
Right. So can I just say, because I love Dame Lillard. He's great.
Who?
But Damian Lillard, did you see that commercial where he's doing the Hulu thing? And I think it was actually funny because I think it was ironically poking.
He's an amazing artist, by the way. I don't know if you guys have heard this stuff. He's pretty good, man.
Oh, he's really good. But have you seen that Hulu commercial? So, and he's trying to do his rhyme, and they're saying, put this in, put that in, put this in. And he says, nah, nah, nah. And then they bring out 2 briefcases of money. And he says, all right, I'll figure out how to do this. I think it's funny. I don't think it's bad. But I think that what you're talking about is there is that truth. And the sad thing to me is in oppressed communities, people who have been oppressed and have no power and access, then they're going to do all kinds of stuff to try to do that, right?
Right.
And so we understand that and how people make bad choices. It doesn't mean I won't hold you individually responsible, but it is just so sick because I heard Lil Wayne was on and he was talking about why he supported Trump. And we don't have to get in if Trump or Biden are worse, okay? We know they're both fucked up. But
There we go.
He said, I got no problem. I got mine. Trump, when you vote for him, I'm voting for him. Now, I don't think Lil Wayne represents most people in the hip hop industry.
I would hope not. No disrespect. I don't disrespect any MCs. I respect them all, but he's definitely his own man.
Yes. And so I just was saying, like, he was kind of embodying both aspects of this thing of like, I want to respect you, but could you don't say you got yours and you don't worry about anybody else anymore, because we want something better than that from you.
And I remember, I'm sorry, guys, Sundiata.
No, I was just going to add on to that. That's a sentiment that they would like to pass along. Go ahead. Go ahead.
When I was a principal, yes, y'all, I was a principal of a high school in Roxbury. When hip hop was getting really strong in the 90s, when Charles was in high school, I could have been his.
Oh my God, in the 80s? No, man, not in the 80s, brother.
No, in the 90s,
yes, in the 90s, yes, yep.
I could have been your principal. I would have set you straight. I'm telling you, you would have been.
Oh no, man, I was wild, man.
Yeah, well, I would have stepped to you. Trust me on that. And what
I'm sure you would have.
there were so many young cats writing, like dudes who had never written before in my school
Right.
they had notebooks full
Right.
of rhymes and poetry. Like I can see this one dude, Evan, like he's right next to me right now, like just
Right.
like it inspired. And then we were able to take that and talk about, okay, so you can do this. It was creating an intellectual, not not bougie intellectual, but an intellectual curiosity and writing out your thoughts and doing one thing more than just writing out your thoughts, but struggling with the flow and the rhyme and the meter of things. The same way we would talk about, regular poetry. They didn't just flow. They then wanted to make it into an art form. That was like, I was just so moved in that period of time. I can still see some of the dudes coming into my office going, Mr. G, I want to read you this and let's chop this up. So
that right there is a powerful statement on literacy. Hip hop itself could have been one of the greatest tools to build literacy in the community ever. But it was dumbed down, like we're talking about. I'm not saying it's over. It ain't over. It ain't never over because energy just transfers. You know what I mean? So we just move the energy back to where it was. But that's a beautiful thought that, a teacher or principal would see the light go on because of this art form. All of a sudden, people who may not have been interested in reading or writing, all of a sudden are trying to write and read and become literal. You know what I'm saying? And eventually, some of us went on to write books and things. I started off with poetry, and now I'm an author, you know what I'm saying? Also an MC. But I still write not because of hip hop. I was doing it before hip hop. But when hip hop came, it just made it like, hey, I can do that. I like that. Whereas classical music, a lot of this goes back to that economic thing. If you went to a school that didn't have a lot of musical, if your music department wasn't strong, or if you didn't have a lot of money to pay for private lessons and things like this. Like I wanted to learn to play the guitar. And there was a kid in the neighborhood, a European kid named Omar Aquati. This kid could play that guitar. Matter of fact, he tried out for Metallica, and he got beat out by the dude who's playing for him now.
Wow.
Yeah, he was nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He died in 1988 in a car accident in Charles River. But I tried to learn how to play guitar from him because my mother couldn't afford lessons. You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to learn how to play like Eddie Hazel from Funkadelic and Prince. And so,
look at you, Sundiata. Knowledge. Charles,
yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Charles, did you know Funkadelic?
I know of Funkadelic. Yep.
You said of Funkadelic?
I'm not as familiar as you guys with it, of course. But yes.
But you've heard some of the music.
Of course. Of course.
He's from Queens.
Sundiata's gonna bring some the next time.
Have you ever been to a concert?
Ooh.
That is an experience.
Yeah, it is. I've been to Funkadelic.
I'm sure you have, Lou. You probably had a better one than me because you probably caught it in the 70s, huh?
I did.
See, that's when my father told me he was off the hook. I saw him in the 90s. No, I saw him in the 2000s, early 2000s. And it was one of the best concerts I ever saw. I experienced something and it was a strange feeling. That mothership thing, when they talk about the mothership connection, when they build you up, they lather it up. When they start, they might start with Maggot Brain, bring you into Chocolate City, move on to Cosmic Slop and all this type. By the time they hit Flashlight, Knee Deep and all that, One Nation Under a Groove, there's a lather. Like you'll see old, young, middle, everybody dancing. It was in it's a vibe. It's a really strong vibe. I've been to many concerts, and hip hop, this and that, Fishbones, different, rock. I've seen a lot of different vibrations, but that Funkadelic vibration is special. Something to it. I don't know what it is, Lou. Something about the music.
Charles, we're doing too much talk, and we want to hear from you.
No, you guys are taking it where it needs to be. You guys are just talking about the intersection between us as educators education with hip hop. But this is, you know, going back really quickly in terms of where hip hop, I guess, what it's becoming. I think that could be directly attributed, as you mentioned, to capitalism. And I think directly, you know, reference a quote from KRS-One, real mainstream artists, or in other words, what was this quote? You're not going to find real artists in the mainstream, in not so many words. This is direct from KRS-One. And, you know, just reflecting on that, like, wow, okay. And then when you look at most of the conscious rappers that are out there, they're not really mainstream. So, you know, we're talking about Immortal Technique. We're talking about Mos Def. We're talking about Talib Kweli. You know, we're talking about all these various artists that sort of are on the fringe, but they're not really put KRS-One now. They're not really put out there. And I guess that sort of ties into what you were saying, Sundiata. I think, unfortunately, you can't even become an artist unless you're given a template in terms of what you're allowed to say, unfortunately, right? And yeah, what are you going to say, Lew?
I just was going to say, not only what you're going to say, they give you templates about what, you know, they have all these fucking analytics that they know what will sell.
Correct.
And they'll tell artists even about their flow and their music. No. This won't sell.
Correct.
This will sell because we've done
Right.
the analytics. That's how fucking
right. It ain't about the music.
Correct.
Yeah,
and
it's all
folks
about
that are making the decisions, and those folks that are making the decisions don't even have a connection to hip hop. Right. You know, there is no connection. It's just what they bring in terms of monetarily. You know, you can be whatever race, but as long as you have a connection to what hip hop represents, you can rock out and do whatever you're going to do. But a lot of times the folks that are making these decisions, they have no connection to hip hop. So essentially hip hop has lost its soul. And I don't see any way back from it unless someone just get themselves in there and becomes way too big that he can just say whatever the hell he wants to say and sort of break the mold. I think that's the only way out. At this point, you just need, like, you know, brave individuals who just want to go against the status quo. So, you know, just for the young people out there, just be mindful of the folks who you see on mainstream who's really presented out there. Should they be the folks who you're listening to and giving all your attention to right now? I think we're fortunate that the folks who made it to mainstream honestly had a message, and they had, they really had a real message, not necessarily all positive, but they had a message in terms of projecting what they saw around them. You know, so it really hit within your heart space in terms of what's being said. Whereas up now is what we're saying, there's really, no heart. There's really no connection, between what's being said and what's being projected on the mainstream with making you a better person in any capacity, in any aspects, but you guys, provide that connection between education and hip hop. So I guess with that said, what are some of the things in terms of bridging that gap that we can just, start doing in terms of hoping to promote, hip hop, or how can we sort of incorporate hip hop into education to sort of help our young people moving forward?
I use it all the time. I use rhymes to make them, to have them repeat. I let them use rhythms in order to accomplish certain things. The other thing is that I felt like I was real disgruntled with how hip hop is gone, and I don't like all the different things and ways it's gone. The lyricism is down and all that, but at the same time, I'm built with my group, the Right Track program, and we are all about education through using the techniques of hip hop, right? So what we talk about often is that this disappointment that we're feeling is partially due to our own doing. We're not spending time teaching the young shorties the proper way to do the art form. And then by the time the art form, because it was still developing, you know what I mean? Right. Like when that golden era came was when the first few years of hip hop, you know what I'm saying? Hip hop wasn't even 10 years old at that time, 20 years old. So it's like, we're at a different point now. Things are different. Okay. The way they're being raised is different. The world is different. So we have to have somewhat of a tolerant view of what they're doing. I try to bridge connections with them, like to find the things that they like, see what it is about what they like that I can also relate to, and then try to bring them over and school them a little bit. Because one thing I know about kids is if you tell them that's trash, that's garbage, which I might feel like at the time, they're gonna pull away. So my daughter taught me this. We would take these trips, on the trips, we would each play a song. Her mother would pick a song, I'll pick a song, she'll pick a song. And you had to shut up and listen to the song. That was the rule, you know what I'm saying? And through that, I started to catch a song or two that she liked that I would have never heard, you know what I mean? And by doing that, she was open to some of my stuff. So it almost has to be like, we got to bridge that gap, because if we want to see good hip hop, we want to see the soul return, you know what I mean? Then we have to be those kind of like people to support it. Plus, the people don't support it no more. Even some of us, like people like us who really love the art form, don't buy records or don't go in and support their artists. You know what I'm saying? So the artist is out there making no money, or, you know what I'm saying, or not getting seen, and they're saying, oh, well, we ain't got no good hip hop. Well, this dude's been making it, but nobody buys his stuff anymore because they ain't playing on the radio.
Right.
So.
Right.
So Charles, you've been posing a lot of questions, which you're very good at, by the way. You're a great facilitator of learning.
Yes, sir.
I have a question because I don't have a young son. He's a 36-year-old B-boy. I still have some influence, but not much. But Charlie's, and if anyone ever gets to know Charlie, you'll know what a great father Charles is, and his mother. Like, they're raising a strong, young, sensitive Black man.
I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you.
Crazy intelligent, and has pretty good skills on ball.
Yeah, he's a baller.
On top.
He's a baller.
He can ball. He needs a better coach like me, but Charles can stand in for that. But Charles, why don't you talk a little bit about what it's like for you? Because you have your son coming up. He's listening. We're not like, you're not like some fascist where you're saying, well, you can listen to this, whatever. But how do you and Prue struggle with this real contradiction of what's happening with music and culture and the commodification of everything around, without this other pole of a movement that Charlie could look at and say, yeah, this is what I could stand for. This is the way I could be. And I know you all give him that image, but how do you talk with Charlie about this?
That's a great question, by the way. A couple of years ago, because now he's 9 going on 10. Let's say 6 or 7. I couldn't even play the radio. With him and I in the car, I couldn't even play the music which was portrayed on the radio, because just the imagery and him just hearing something on the radio and then just wanting to say it out loud, was just like, oh man, wait a minute, we're not ready to have this conversation yet. So hold on, I couldn't even like listen to hip hop, honestly, and it hurt me that I can't have my son listening to this. Now that I have knowledge of something, it's gonna just wreck, his whole conscience. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, I shielded him from that imagery. I shielded him from that messaging. But to your point, recently I said, you know what? He is, becoming, and he will become a Black man in America. I can't shield him, but so much longer. So to your point, Lew, I've been opening him up to not even just music, just more movies, which is going to sort of, provide more impetus for questioning. I'm going to play Malcolm X, in a couple of days. I just wanted to just, see that and just gain that knowledge. Malcolm X movie, Spike Lee. I'm starting to just, let him listen to a little Nas, let him listen to a couple of songs now, because I need that understanding. No, not little Nas X. No. Nasir Jones. Oh no, if that's whatever floats your boat. But no, Nasir Jones. Yeah. So I'm going. I've been incorporating more of that. That sort of music to him, because I need the questions now, because he's at the age where I don't want him going to anyone else but me for questions. You know what I mean? I don't want him asking someone else, with regards to, how to deal with women, or, what's weed, daddy, or anything else, So I think he's at the age now, not totally just like throwing it all at him at once, but if there's a song that I could think of, just in terms of like, hopefully, eliciting some response from him. I'm open to now playing it now, because I feel like, as you move from 9 to 10, that's a critical point there. That's an interesting juncture in the kid's life, So I think he's ready to hear certain things. So, to answer your question, I think I'm opening him up to a lot more information, and he's giving me a lot more questions in terms of, various things in reference to, if he may hear, a curse word, or if he may hear like a reference, or what is that? And, in the best way I can, I try to tell him. And
Right. Let me just, I really do appreciate what you're saying, but I want to kind of frame it even more sharply.
yeah,
Charlie's going into the world now, and
Yep.
we, just like my son or anybody's children, we can't shield them completely from what's
right,
out there. Like, so he's going to be hearing, some of his boys at school, or, he goes over somebody's house where you don't have control of all this stuff. How are you? And you may not be at that point, but Charlie's going to get to that point where he's going to say, well, I like this sound, or this or that. How do you, because I don't have to engage with that. I'm wondering how you will engage, as you can't actually control as much of his cultural life, if you will, because the world out there is going to come in on him. Even if
what? To answer the question, full immersion. Let me, and then just thinking about it, what sort of provided the impetus for me with him, playing basketball and loving the sport. We were at the gym not too long ago. He's playing with these kids, and Charlie's a nice kid, as you know, Lou. So he gets there, and these kids are like, "What the f? What the shit?" They were like going wild, and they were like the same age, maybe a little older. And Charlie's looking at them like, "Whoa, like what's going on?" He's not used to hearing kids engage like that. So but Charlie could ball though. So he's on the court and he's doing this thing. He made like 4 or 5 shots in a row. Like, whoa, they were like amazed at how good he was. But to that point, he wasn't necessarily ready for that onslaught of just in your face language. He wasn't ready for that. So when he heard that, I think that was a good, entry point into that sort of understanding. But to answer your question, I think the best way to, for me anyway, to give him that true understanding is through immersing him in it, through full immersion into, I don't know, the ills of society, but just like another way of living and thinking and expressing yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you and I have talked about it. I'm not going to share all the personal stuff, but what we're saying is, I think we both agree with this, and we agree that as teachers, when we work with our students, like there's ways to try to talk things out, right? But when someone steps to you and they're not backing down,
right?
You don't really have a lot of choices. So we talked about that. The reason I'm bringing this up, Sundiata, Charlie is this both really sweet and athletic, gifted kid. And you could see, if he couldn't play ball, he could be getting in some trouble with some young dudes, right? But he's still going to have to face that. And me and Charles have laughed about it. We're glad when Charlie stands up and he doesn't just, well, let's talk this out. And it's just such a hard balancing act. And I don't think that's just in the Black community, but in particular, like you said, people are playing ball and talking shit at each other. And Charlie just wants the ball. That's all he wants to do. You don't want to talk shit to people.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. Your challenge will be, at some point he may say, Dad, I'm going to start talking shit at people. I'm sick of the way they talk to me. And now when I dog them, I'm going to get in their face and go, yeah, I am the man. Like, I don't know how I'm asking that question. How would you navigate that with Charlie? Because that is part of the culture.
Mm-hmm. Are you asking me or Sundiata, Lew?
No, I'm asking, it could be either of you, but I know Charlie. I don't know Sundiata's children.
Right.
I have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I help raise her.
It might happen with your daughter too.
Oh, she's had all kind of stuff. My daughter's 25.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so I've been through all kind of things with her. I had to teach her early about self-love, self-pride, history, real history, separation from Afrocentricity, and and national understanding. There's lots of different chambers that I had to go through with her, and it ain't done. And what was helpful was some faggot ass cop pulled her out the car one night and treated her wrong, so she got a chance to taste it a little something. You know what I mean? And after that, she was all ears. She was listening before, but after that, she was like, "Now, what was that you was telling me about, Dad?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I was thinking, though, when you said full immersion, we ought to come up with like a retreat, like a Zoom retreat for children or young.
There you go. There you go.
Bring forth a playlist.
There you go.
Talk about certain things, school them on hip hop, right?
There you go.
After this thing, when they sit through it, you've had a little bit of history, you've had a little bit of rundown of how you got to where you are. Nobody can understand where you're gonna go if you don't know where you're coming from. You know what I'm saying? And this is the one culture who refuses to look at their ancestors or their the people who laid the foundation and give them respect. Rock and roll, they do it. You get these young rock and roll kids, you talk about Zeppelin, dude, Zeppelin, what? They got mad respect.
Right.
Us, you get some of these young kids and talk about Chubb Rock, they'll be like, who? Who's that? Oh, him, he's old.
Right.
Lil Wayne is old to a lot of these kids.
There you go. Yep. Right.
I was just gonna say, it could be 5 weeks ago, and that's old already. Like,
You know what I'm saying? Who? Future? He's old. Like, what, really? Damn.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
And to that point, reflecting when I was a teacher, just hearing young people, just disparage, Wu-Tang and Nas, and put, well, Drake's the greatest artist of all time, and you guys are old school, you guys don't know anything about hip hop, and it's just, whoa, Drake's the greatest artist of all time.
Really?
Right.
Again, I don't disrespect any of our young people trying to do their thing. Look, if you're making money, and and I'm not trying to big up their capitalist dreams, but I'm saying if it's helping you to stay off the street, to keep money in your pockets, if you're not destroying your community in the process, I can respect it. If it's not maybe my flavor, I can't say I'm a fan. I will say I've heard some beats by Drake that move me, and I think that he's a thinker. You know what I'm saying? I just choose to talk about those cats that I like Wu-Tang. Them dudes is the real deal. They write serious lyrics. They put style in. They have wordplay. They talk about what's going on. You know what I mean? And they expand. Like the Jizza. Jizza talks about otherworldly things and not just what's going on in the neighborhood.
36 Chambers. Yep.
That's what I mean.
Right.
I don't want to hear just what's popping or dudes is getting shot around. I know that. I live in the community. You know what I'm saying? I teach in the community. I've been a community activist since I was 14.
Right.
Straight out of Roxbury. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, Lou, if you knew about Indie Prep. You know what Indie Prep was?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work for Indie Prep. I worked for and then I went to the Freedom House. I worked there years. I was a history.
Right on Freedom House, right on Columbus Ave and Mass Ave, right? Or
no, Freedom House in Grove Hall.
Oh, in Grove Hall, right? Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, around the corner from from Prince Hall. But
yeah, for people who aren't listening, we're now citing some Boston sites. I wanted to kind of get back to what you both were saying about this thing about Wu-Tang Clan and Method Man and people like that. Like they don't even see that as hip hop. They don't. It's like it's another genre to them.
They don't know what real hip hop is.
And that's sad, right? Just on its own basis, that's sad because you should know your history.
Right.
But I do see a little bit of a movement among some of those cats like Redman, Method Man, DMX, Snoop. They did a video together, about 6 of them, and they're not even old school to us. They're still young, Cynthia, but they did a whole thing about what they hated about the new sound, and some of them are making their own videos again. Like you see the Method Man video, which is hilarious to me. I like that he's doing it because he's playing a lot of different roles. But I don't know why, but in my gut, I think we're moving into a place where there's a new generation of young people that might be ready to get schooled on some stuff, and there are people ready to school them, and there's somewhat of a movement because this. I hate to say it because people have a right to like their sound, but some of this shit is so vapid and
Yeah.
worthless in terms
Right.
of even its flow. I don't care about the words, even its flow. Like I would like, Charles. I'll look up the video and we play a little of Snoop and DMX making fun of their flow, the way they sound,
Mhm.
and they're imitating their sound. I think it's funny. Now the young people may not, but I
Yeah.
would love to bring that to one of the shows.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, wow. There's so many ways I can go from what you just said. Just going back in terms of building on what you said, Sundiata, in reference to doing a podcast with just giving a full immersion of what hip hop represents. I think that's dope, you know. And then just even taking that a step further, there's so many different levels to what hip hop represents. You don't necessarily just have to be an artist. You could be a financial planner. You can be the person that makes the beats. You could be the CEO. So I think to that point, like once we get those kids in the room and just have that conversation in terms of, well, what do you think incorporate, like, how do you think the music is played, in terms of the beats? How do you think, beats are made? Oh, I don't know, and there's so many different intricate aspects in terms of being an engineer, so I think hip hop just lends itself to just so many different avenues that kids can just dive right in terms of being fully immersed in the culture without losing your soul, just in being an artist, so it's just letting kids know that. And I think one of the powerful things about hip hop is the full immersion in terms of just having financial literacy. You guys are familiar with Dame Dash, and he speaks about being an entrepreneur, and he says it. It may hit hard, but I mean, it's, to me, it's true empowerment in terms of folks just taking ownership for whatever good or service that they want to provide for the world, just taking ownership for that. And I think there's something to be said for promoting entrepreneurship, specifically within the Black community. So I think that's another aspect in terms of what hip hop could just bring in terms of just that education of just having more financial literacy, with just bettering your community and your family's life as well. Hip hop just provides so many different facets to it. And just reflecting on what you said, Lew, about Wu-Tang. I mean, they had a plan, boy, in terms of the RZA being the architect, and then putting out Method Man as a front man in terms of that'll be I guess he was the more not I guess he was the best that in terms of representation of what the audience would be ready for at first. So they put Method Man out there first, and then they brought the Wu-Tang out totally in totality, and then all those different, and then the Genius, and you got Raekwon and Ghostface, and Master Killer, and like all the rest of them. And it's just, to me, that's just the true embodiment of what hip hop is. You get some dudes from the hood who are just like geniuses at what they do, and then to your point, they're branching out. I think Method Man is like, I don't know. I mean, he's a wonderful actor now, and he's doing various other things even beyond hip hop. And the Riz is like directing movies now. You know what I mean? And I think he's doing a little acting as well. So it's just, hip hop is a great entry point, not only just being an artist, but just like if you want to just get into like making beats, or just acting, or directing, or being an engineer, or whatever it is you want to do. Hip hop provides a nice entry point for young people who's willing to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what your history on Wu-Tang. It sounds like you're a big fan, but I don't know if you knew that they started off, it was Prince Rakim and the GZA.
Yep,
right?
in Brooklyn. Yep.
Yeah, the GZA put out an album called Words from a Genius in 1991. And then 2 years later, in 93, that's when Wu-Tang came. And I was like, that's that same kid, the GZA? Well, actually, he wasn't the GZA, the Genius. That's the Genius.
Right.
Like, yo, he got a squad now. Okay.
Right.
So Method Man kind of came in, and he could have seemed like the front man, and he sort of was in a way from that, the new phase. But I always like to give them to their credit.
No doubt.
The progenitors of the squad.
Right. But the heart was OD. I think ODB was the heart of Wu-Tang, clearly, obviously.
Think so?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this such a multifaceted squad. It's like
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
some squads where you have really strong frontmen, and then you have a couple of supporting characters. But Wu-Tang, everybody's his own man. They're all dope. Like
Oh, without
nobody
question.
in Wu-Tang is whack. You
Without
know,
question.
Without question.
Right.
Yeah,
all dope.
yeah. I was just gonna say that. And here's my fear. I would like to do something for these young people, right? And I still think they may look at it and go, "This is whack." You know, they because you can't make people see genius if they don't see it, right? Like you can try. I don't think it's a bad thing to try, but they're gonna say, I could see that people, and that's part of what we're worried about, right? Like this just doesn't resonate with them, so it doesn't have the
See, that's where those
meaning.
connections come in. So I think Sundiata, whoever, sorry to cut you wisdom, Lou, if you have those connections in terms of bringing them directly to the studio, having them meet someone who they may see, you know, to your point, like anything, you know, as a former math teacher, it doesn't, you know, I could, you know, say anything in front of the class, but if I don't make that connection with the outside world, it's meaningless to the kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, so if kids are just able to just make that connection, you know, in terms of like going to the studio and meeting all these folks who they're seeing on television, I think that's a connection right there for a lot of these kids.
No, I agree. So I have this thought. Do you think there are some bridge people, you know, like Chance or uh, Kendrick Lamar, right? Folks that have been making, you know, that are making some statements that even they seem far away now because they're not as much future. There
Right.
are some people out there that maybe that's the way to make the link. If we're talking now, we're just talking about like what we might do in terms of kind of hipping people to hip hop. Is
Right.
like can we make some links there to show and I would love it. I don't think we'll ever get a chance. And maybe we get to interview someone like one of those three and
Right.
ask them, do they know about Wu-Tang? Do they really understand that? Maybe they do. I hope they do, because we're losing out on a lot of genius. That's what's sad. That's what I feel sad about. Like,
And you
I
know,
don't
to that point, you made a great point, Lou. And I think maybe perhaps we're a little too hard on the current artists, because there are some artists who are, you know, putting good music out there. I think Kendrick Lamar has his, like, you know, he has his ear to the pulse in terms of like presenting that conscious rap in a lot of respects. I think J. Cole definitely.
J. Cole, yeah.
Yeah, you know, he puts it out there as well. Who else?
I think Future. I
don't know. I may give you some
I knew
pushback
you
on
were
Future.
gonna say
Give you some Future. I don't know. I mean, I think Vince Staples might be another one. I think there's a few artists out there who's you know, who I say has that righteous, has that conscious aspect to who they are as a person. So I don't want to just like totally disparage the art form now, but they're few and far between, and I think that's the point. You know?
And I guess I'm saying that I want to split apart the art form, which I don't think is very artistic anymore because it's become monetized and analytics to say what's going to sound, and being conscious. Because I can accept. I mean, look, I don't love Drake, but I think Drake has some nice sound. I do.
Absolutely. Yep.
I don't have a problem.
Yep.
I think there's some nice stuff out there, but most of it isn't that. And so there's the art, just the art as art, and then there are the people who have something to say and artistic. That's the best. Like, you remember when you and you won me over, Charles won me over. I said Tupac or Biggie, and Charles said, please. When I said Tupac, he said, please. Yeah, Tupac maybe had some of the consciousness, but in terms of a lyricist and flow, Biggie was better. And I think I have to admit to that, even though I don't want to ever admit anything to Charles because he always thinks he's right. I think he's right. Biggie was a better lyricist than Tupac, but
we're diving into interesting. You know what? All right, we got to do it. I think Sundiata, we had this bill before. We're gonna do it, brother. Let's go. Let's see everybody's top. I guess we could go top 3 or top 5 favorite artists.
Can I hear what Sundiata says is who's a better lyricist?
Okay.
Biggie and Tupac. Out of Biggie and Tupac?
Yeah.
Interesting question. Well, I tried to stay out of that whole thing when it was happening because I actually knew Tupac. He was part of,
Really?
yeah, he was part of our crew. And
Mm.
in the original, I'm part of this crew called the Solar Panel. And we started off as the Microphone Mafia. Tupac was one of the members in the beginning. And then of course, he was busy doing things. He was with Digital Underground and all that. We
Right.
did the radio show in Atlanta called the Panther Power Hour for 6 years. He was part of that too. But
Mm-hmm.
he got on just as we got the show. So my friend Didon
Mm.
Skills ended up taking over pretty much the major part of the show. So as a person, I got a chance to meet him a few times. We actually made some music together.
Mm.
But and I respected his lyricism. I didn't know Biggie. I listened to Biggie. I thought they was both good. They were
Yeah.
both good at what they were doing. They both from Brooklyn. Interesting, you know what I
Mm.
mean. Even though Tupac had went out west,
Right.
Brooklyn.
Okay.
I felt like
Mhm.
it was different styles. It was almost hard to. It's hard to really battle them
Yeah.
because Biggie's content would never, and to me, Biggie's content was never on the level of Tupac. Tupac's
No.
had different degrees that he didn't even, I don't think, express all the time because he was mixed in with, gangster stuff and all this type of noise. But he came from a very, very deep history. His people is deep. His organizations is doing work now. You know what I mean? So he's from a whole nother craft. Biggie was a street dude who had mad skills with the rhymes. He was a straight poet. So I mean, I just kind of think they were different stylists. I wouldn't say one was better than the other. You know what I'm saying? I just couldn't. It's just they were different. You know,
Mm.
Yeah.
I liked, I liked, uh, I liked Biggie's when I first heard him. I liked Biggie's offbeat style at first. When I first heard it. When I heard Tupac first, I really loved his content matter because the first time I ever heard a song was "They Got Me Trapped." No,
Mm.
it was the song he did with Digital Underground. But then when he came with his own stuff, "They Got Me Trapped," and he was
Mm.
talking about police brutality, and it was dope
Right.
at video. I liked the flow. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So
Mm.
I don't know. I couldn't say either one. So go ahead.
I hear you.
Next part.
But I like that you mentioned Digital Underground.
Mm. And I think
Love
Tupac, we were talking earlier about in terms of like projecting a certain image, and with Biggie, especially Biggie and Tupac, they didn't necessarily, have the most positive things to say, but it was something about what they were saying. It was heartfelt, in particular Biggie, he just talked about the grittiest aspects of his life in Bed-Stuy, right? But what he was saying and the message that came across was just, it was real in so many respects, it was just, that's how it was in Brooklyn. Of course he had Juicy and he had, I Love When They Call Me Big Papa. He had those songs as well, but I just think Biggie just presented just that hardcore Brooklyn, straight up, everything rough, rugged, and raw about Brooklyn. He presented it out there, and you had to respect it. And to your point about Tupac, to me, he's a true embodiment of a revolutionary. And unfortunately, that's why they got him up out of here. But that's a subject for another podcast in terms of what happened with him. But I think he represents the very essence of why hip hop was created. I think Tupac is just the embodiment of hip hop. If you had aliens come down and you want to just they're asking, well, what is hip hop? To me, I would give them knowledge of self with regards to Tupac above any other artist. That goes without saying. I think I would just give them knowledge about Tupac. To me, he's the embodiment of hip hop in all respects. He provides a bridge between the old and the new. I think he's right that he provides that intersection for me in terms of what hip hop represents. That's much respect I got for Tupac. But and when I was answering that question, I just think in terms of just lyricism and wordplay and pitch, I think just sort of the intricacies of like putting rhymes together. I think Biggie was a little more intricate with his flow. I know. Are you guys ready to dive into your top 5 favorite MCs before we get up out of here?
No doubt.
Who wants to go first? Should I go first, or who wants to go first?
I'm going last. I'm straight up.
You can go first, Charles.
Right. And so I think for me, the person who I have at the top of the list is Nas. I think Nas just to me he took what Rakim sort of laid the foundation for in terms of just like intricate wordplay and knowledge of self. And I think Nas sort of took it to that next level, through paying homage as well. He didn't sort of totally deviate from it. He put his own style to it. But just the genius, coming out so young with Live at the Barbecue, was just like entry into hip hop.
Dope song too.
I wish I could play it, man. I'll play it next time, I guess. But oh man, just coming out there, I went to jail for snuffing Jesus. I mean, it's just coming out there like right off, just coming out with those lyrics, just for me puts him at the top of the list. Of course, Illmatic, just making Illmatic, when he was still in high school, still a teenager, just making perhaps one of the greatest, if not the greatest album of all time as a teenager. Just wow. I mean, then of course it was written and Stillmatic and I Am, and it's for me, Nas sort of provided just that entry point in terms of my real love for hip hop. It started with Nas, so I have him at the top of the list. Number two, I struggle with number two. I think overall, I like to say I like to put Biggie up there at number two, but I think Sean Carter, also known as Jay-Z, for everything that he has done with hip hop. I have him up there at number two, and I think he's intelligent. The way his albums have been great. What he's become in hip hop has been amazing as well. And unfortunately, I think Jay-Z has fell victim to what we spoke about in terms of capitalism. I think he's been caught up, maybe by choice, in terms of just his focus sort of deviating from the art form. I think he could be as intricate as anyone. He just at times chooses not to be, for better, for worse, but I can't deny the talent. So I have him at number two. I have Rakim Allah number three. Just goes without saying. I think, you're probably aware of this, Sundiata, when I think it was the hip hop show I was watching on Netflix. DMC was talking about when he first heard Rakim. He was like, "Oh man, it's time for me to get up out of here, man." He thought, he said, "Wow, this guy's on another level. I can't compete with that." This is a fellow artist saying that when he first heard Rakim. You know what I mean? So I think Rakim, just everyone pays homage to him, just being, if he's not the greatest, he's definitely somewhere on that list to me. Rakim is just amazing. I ain't no joke. He's at the mic smoking. He's just amazing artist. I have Biggie at number four. I have a special place in my heart for Biggie. I think from his music, as I was coming up in New York and, just taking the train and, going to different parties and doing whatever, sort of Biggie was sort of my entry point to that in terms of, teenager, just acting wild and reckless. Biggie was sort of spearheaded that for me. And plus his albums were great as well. So, but for number five, I have Ice Cube as my number five. Lethal Injection was my entry point into him. Before that, of course, NWA. But I was a little young, 9 or 10, somewhere around there. So I caught the tail end. Of course, I caught up to it. But for me, Ice Cube was just dope. He wrote, besides just writing all that NWA music and everything that involved with that, in his own right, he's just an amazing artist. So for me, Ice Cube was my fifth artist in terms of my favorite and my top five artists.
Respectable. That's a respectable lineup. You know what I mean? Most definitely. Mine will be slightly different.
Right.
Let's see. And like I said, off top, everybody that you said, I respect quite a lot. You know what I mean, in hip hop. My number one, and I don't really do them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got a definite number one, and then after that, he gets a little muddled. I like to quote Freddie Fox. Number one's a hard spot. Either you fight or get shot. Here's what you got, pump. So I like KRS-One first, of course.
Mm.
To me, he's the blast master. I think he's the best in all categories, pretty much. He can battle. He tells good stories. He's political. He's cultural. He has
The teacher.
Yeah,
Right.
he's the teacher, but he's also, he's taking responsibility for bringing gangsterism to hip hop too.
Mhm.
So before Criminal Minded, that's what really a lot of NWA stuff was influenced by Criminal Minded, and it was said so. You know what I'm saying? Um, Just Ice rolled with Chris, and Just Ice to me, him and Schoolie D are the first hip hop gangsters. You know what I'm saying on wax to me. But anyway, so Karis,
You rate this Sundiata real quick with regards to KRS-One. I believe I was listening to an interview with him, and he said that just keep himself sharp with all the top 5 or top 10 artists that are currently out. He has like a battle rap for all those artists, just in case they ever come at him. So he says, you know what? Let me just write like a song for them, just in case they ever try to come for my neck, and also to stay sharp. So he just every year, every so often, he updates that list in terms of coming up with a song for all your favorite artists. You know what I'm saying? Just because you never know, because hip hop is about the battling as well. So
KRS is a crazy MC. And when I say crazy, with all due respect, meaning like he's just wild for the night. He came out disrespected. I mean, never gonna say disrespected, but he dissed one of the best MCs of the times, the best crews of the times.
right.
Licked a shot at one of the largest projects in the United States. I mean, you just
Yes, he did.
so
Yes, he did.
okay, moving on. So I also love Cool G Rap.
Queen's Brethren. Yep.
Best lyricist of all times. And I'm far from a gangster, so a lot of stuff that he talks about I don't relate to, but that's how dope he is. I still got to fuck with. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
love Chuck D from Public Enemy because he probably was the one who made me want to do it because I could see how powerful words were and how you could affect somebody's actual life. You know what I'm saying? And then Kool Keith from Ultramagnetic MCs, I think is one of the greatest because he had one of the most innovative styles. And a lot of the new styles that you hear today was all, well, I say was influenced by the things he was doing a long time ago in the 80s. I mean, early on. And then what, number 5? At number 5 is tough. Right. I would say it's kind of between, I got a lot of love for LL. A lot of respect for what he done.
Right.
But I also think there's some nasty MCs like Pharoah Monch, Divine Styler, who are up there.
Couple of Queens cats, by the way. Pharoah Monch, LL, there we go. That's another subject.
Yeah, Queens has some lyrical cats. I can't front.
And if any young ones are listening, we'd have to do a whole show on some of the people you just spoke about.
That's the next show. In terms of which borough reps the hardest, I guess, or which area of the country reps the hardest.
I'm not. We could have that conversation, but it's already a done deal.
Oh wow!
We love Queens, but Queens is the suburb. That's
the suburb. Oh my God! So it's blasphemy. Okay. So it's blasphemy, brother.
The old argument. This is the old argument.
Oh man, you're making us go to our next topic for the next podcast, man. You gonna make me dive into it, man. Let's save that for next week. Let's save that for next week. Let's save that. Let's save that.
The Bronx, right?
No, I was in Brooklyn. Charles is in Queens.
Brooklyn.
But the best part of it is that Queens has actually gotten pretty hard now. But when Charles was coming up, it was not the same as it is now.
Oh my gosh, such disrespect.
But we'll leave that for another.
Well, you know, I have a lot of people, a lot of friends from New York who would say a little different, Lou.
It's such craziness, man. South Jamaica Queens is crazy. Come on, man. You watch Power, right? That's your favorite show.
If we're gonna go there, then we're leaving out places like the South Bronx too, right. Or Red. Let me tell you, when I was growing up, Red Hook, Brooklyn.
Oh.
Just anyway, I'm going to go to my 5 because I'm sure we all got to get off. I just wanted to tell you that I just looked up on Billboard magazine, the top 10. They had Biggie at number 1. I don't know why, but that's who they had at number 1.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm conflicted about all this stuff because I
Well, who's your
I
favorite?
think-
You can make it easier. Just go to your favorite artist. It doesn't necessarily have to be,
that's
status quo.
that's what I'm saying. It's different between a favorite artist and necessarily they were the best.
True.
But
indeed.
one person that I would put in there, and I don't know where, so I'll give you my list, and then I'll try to tell you who number 1 is. I think we're forgetting Queen Latifah and how strong she
Yes,
and
the queen
how
is
hard.
hyped up. Right.
And
Give it to
UNITY.
Queen. Right.
And when she said, "I'll punch
Big up
that
the
sucker
tip,
in his
big up the
face,"
tip.
damn, just blew up shit.
Mm.
Like, and she was from Newark, so so I loved her. And I think I would definitely put Nas in there.
Cool.
And not because where he's from, just because he's the best.
Mhm.
I would put in there. This is where I struggle. I love Ghostface Killer. I just
Oh, there we
fucking
go.
love.
Respect.
Respect. Yes. Yes.
And he's got to be in the top 10, and I will fight if you guys don't have him in the top 10.
He's my favorite Wu-Tang member, by the way. But that's
We know,
something for another.
we know.
Right. Right.
And now I'm going to add someone, and I'm not trying to be politically correct here by picking women, but Lauryn Hill's that album, the album that she did,
Classic album. Right.
the greatest album I've ever heard in terms of sound, flow, speaking to the people. And when she was in her flow with the Fugees, particularly, I just really loved her. But she didn't carry on, so I don't think she has sustainable.
But I think it goes to that point in terms of not wanting to lose your soul, and I think she just went against that, head on, and unfortunately, it sort of led to certain things, certain mistakes that she's made.
Exactly.
But I think she can't just carry on in terms of putting things out there that wasn't vibing with her soul space. So I just think it's just, she just wasn't vibing with that to that point. Yep.
I agree with that. And
What's that for, Lou?
I think that's 4, even though I don't know if I really want to put Lauryn Hill in there, but it's fine. And then I'm going to put Immortal Technique. I love Chuck D, but I think Immortal Technique, and he's someone who's doing it now. He's got his own podcast, and I think the man's got flow. He can rhyme. He's got words, and frankly, he is the only non-black person we name. He's Peruvian, if we know. And he's got great. And I'm going to leave one last thing. The greatest MC was Tony Touch. If you all know Tony Touch.
Tony Touch.
I know we're going
Tony Touch.
to argue later about it, but Tony Touch was the greatest MC.
Tony Touch. Okay.
You remember him?
I like Tony Touch's mixtapes. Tony Touch.
Right.
Oh, my
Yep.
He gets some of the bangers.
Right.
So for next
Tony
time.
Touch.
Yeah, Tony. Because also we should do a show, and then it won't just be us. Maybe I could bring other people, but about hip hop among Latinos and that whole movement. Like Big Pun and
you talk about artists. You talk about lyrics. Oh, lyricists.
And
Big Pun was on fire.
Damn. I can't even remember the name, but who used to rock with Big Pun a lot.
Fat Joe? Not Fat Joe.
Right.
Oh, Fat Joe, yeah.
There's a whole Latin
He's still around. Yep.
hip hop culture that developed off of this. It's really some very powerful stuff. At some point, I feel like we have some knowledge. I know some people, you may know some people. Be great to bring that into the show at some point. Because Big Pun, forget it.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about I've seen like documentaries where they'll talk about the quote unquote Latino contribution. And it's funny to me because Latinos they're Africans anyways. But
there we go.
Right. So it's
absolutely.
But we'll go with the constructs of the United States and how we're in this, pigmentocracy and all of that.
Mm.
So fine. I like to beat nuts quite a bit. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, taking it back. Yes, sir. It's off the hook this year. Getting mad money off the books this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love the beat nuts,
right.
man.
I like that kid used to rock with, I think it was Cold Crush. What was his name? Crazy Eddie? No, not Crazy Eddie. Anyway, they were break dancers and
Right.
graph artists
Big,
without
big
without
break.
the without the Latino uh contribution, hip hop wouldn't be half of what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And I just don't separate them from, you know. Now, it's interesting. I was listening to Crazy Legs, right, from
Mm.
Rocksteady Crew. So Crazy Legs was talking about original breakdancing, and he
Mm.
was saying, he was saying, going back to this nationality thing I was talking to you about, Charles. He was saying that the original breakers, the best one was this dude named Spy. He loved this dude named Spy. Everybody respected Spy. Spy was a Moor, right? So so-called African American, so-called
Mm.
black. So
Mm.
he said Spy used to, did the original style, what we call the Moreno style. That's original break style.
Mm.
Moreno style. You know what I'm saying? Interesting that that in the language is embedded
There
the
we go.
truth.
Right.
And
Right.
to get
And
that
you
would
bring up an
that would pick us
interesting
up
point.
from something else, but I like that.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's completely outside. I'm just saying there's a whole bunch of, like Kaye 13. I don't know if you know him. He's newer. There's some really good Latin hip hop artists, and I agree with you.
Cypress Hill.
They come from the African diaspora, but trust me, even within the Latin community, like they don't. A lot of Dominicans don't want to be called black. They say I'm either mixed or I'm blanco. So
Mm.
I think you're hitting a really good point. Then there are others that can embrace it, right? But I just think it'd be a genre we might want to take a
See,
look
that's
at
yes.
some
You
point.
save that. Definitely talk about the various the intersection or the connection with various ethnicities with hip hop is definitely something we need to talk about as well. We speak about the Latin interest, but there's various other cultures, various other cultures as well, even beyond the United States, which has fully embraced hip hop as well. So yeah, you can speak about that in terms of your travels as well. And it's my hope that we can actually bring artists and bring various connections to the hip hop community on this podcast. And wow, who knows where it could take us? Just in terms of Lou, you mentioned how do we sort of like provide that connection for kids once we start like bringing in influential folks and greeting or bringing this what we're talking about to the masses. I mean, who knows what it could where it can go in terms of providing that impact.
And then we can be like the capitalists, let them to buy our show from us and make mad money off.
No doubt. What are you gonna say, Sundiata?
How I don't know, Lou took me off with that one. I thought he was gonna do the Mr. Burns rub his hands and some shit.
Yeah, like, we got something cooking. He got something cooking.
Yeah, but I mean, we can be catalysts. People who really love the art form. If we're not dead, we're not even old. You know what I mean? And that includes you, Lou. You know what I mean?
Right?
I believe in energy. You know what I'm saying? I believe that energy is not, these bodies that we're in are just light vehicles for our
There
souls,
we go. There we
spirit.
go.
Yeah.
So if you have a young spirit, or a lively one,
Mm.
then you ain't never really old. So what we should be doing is to take this art form, take this gem that we've been given and share it. You know what I'm saying? Since we really jumped in and were there at the right time, to kind of absorb it before it was capitalized, before it was
There you
monetized.
go.
You know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
we love it for what it is. Those who came in later, they didn't have that experience, and we can't be mad at them for it. It's just what it is. So we got to share that experience. Like my grandmother shared experiences of living in Mississippi. She was born in 1928. You know what I'm saying? And there were things that she saw and experienced that would have seemed almost hard to believe. But
Right.
I heard them from her as the kid and respected her enough to respect my history and
Mm.
know that that was true. So then I went further into trying to learn about what was what. So same thing with hip hop.
Right.
If it's told from people who are respected, like even like Lou's idea about bringing some people that the kids do respect today, and have them speak intelligently about it, we can push, sway them towards just learn about where you come from. That's what we're saying on all levels, not just hip hop. Everything with us, learn where you come from, learn who you are. Because not knowing who
Right.
you are is fucking you up all day long. And it's even spilling over into the culture that you're in, which is hip hop now. Learn about that. If you learn about that, you'll learn, like you said earlier, Charles, that made that if you learn the right shit, listen to the right shit, you can open up a pathway into a whole world of poetry, literacy, knowledge of self, you know, but you can also get into this other shit right here.
Right.
Real easy. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And I actually like that we are of different ages, right? Like, so even between the three of us, Charles had an experience. I had some of Charles' experience, but it wasn't, it was a whole different headset. You had your experience. I had some of yours, but I didn't have it fully and then we go all the way back to old school.
Right.
I like that. I like we're able also to see that and feel it, and also say probably the 20 and 30-year-olds, that was broken. It got broken at a certain point. Like, but maybe I'm just riffing now, but maybe we could bring on some young hip hop heads to have them, even if it was us to get into it with them, right? Like to be on it and beef a little bit about what they think is good music.
You guys can do that. I'm gonna have to pass on that.
Okay.
Our community bickers and beefs enough.
I didn't mean beef in a bad way. I just meant
No, but I mean, what I'm saying is, what you're talking about is having good discussion and good discourse.
yeah, that's all
Correct.
I'm saying. Like, I don't mean I'm using beef in the
No, but what I'm saying is, for us, it'll be beef.
right.
You said it the way that's what it'll be. So I
But
know
Luke-
me. I know how it can go, and I just
No, I agree. It can go wrong real quick.
But Lou brings up a good point, just in terms of, when we were younger, obviously, the folks who were older than us didn't really value what we were listening to, and vice versa. And I think to that point, a lot of young people, they're not getting the wisdom and the knowledge from the older folks, because older folks just, toss it aside and just say, oh, whippersnapper, I'm not going to engage, or get out of here with that. And they're just unwilling to have that discourse, to have those, conversations with the kids, just to, sort of like give them jewels here and there, not necessarily just like totally immerse them, because, for young people now, if you totally just like throw it in, to them, they're just gonna, say, wait, whoa, nah, I'm not with that. What you giving me now, man? I don't vibe with that. Just give them like, little jewels here and there, and for them to just like take it and just sort of like grow from it. And I think that's key, man. I think that's key for these young people. Absolutely.
Like if the COVID wasn't around, an excellent idea would be like take some equipment, take people out into the wilderness. You know what I'm saying?
Ah, there you go.
Now the funny thing is that's to take it out of its actual element that it was, it was raised in a wilderness, but a concrete wilderness. Take it to the natural wilderness, listen to the sounds with a different construct, and then talk about deeper things than just what's around you. You know what I'm saying? Take yourself out from what's around you. Okay, this is what it's talking about, but there's all this too. So now let's talk about where it comes from. Let's talk about the music. Let's talk about what they're talking about in the music in this environment. Of course, right now, I don't think that's going to work, but I'm just saying, just break the mold of how they're getting it. They're getting it from the media, which is the worst Michael Myers in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I think that's the last word right there. So
there is the last word.
So to everyone watching us, this is going to be hopefully a continual thing that we just keep up. You're going to see our faces often, just talking about hip hop and various other aspects of what's going on around us, man. Brothers, this has been great, man. It's a pleasure building with you guys, man. I knew it was going to be great. I just knew it. Our energy, and for everyone listening, these two gentlemen share the same birthday, so they had the same energy projected into the universe, man. So that's a blessing, man.
And I just want to say, we chopped it up for 2 hours. I'm tired because we work so good together, but also you got me to think. Like it wasn't just, but we talked for 2 hours. I don't even know where that time went.
Right.
So I want to also thank Charles for pulling us all together, and
Yeah,
Sundiata for being our hip hop historian, because I got knowledge, but you
The
got,
rock. That's the
damn,
rock.
my
That's the
brother.
rock.
Like there's stuff I forgot that you remember, and then just
Right.
stuff I don't even know. Like to me, of the three of us, you're our hip hop historian. I'm not saying we don't have knowledge.
No
but
doubt, no doubt. Well, hey man, listen, I appreciate the
it's true.
respect.
That's the rock right there. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I take it humbly because I roll with a lot of DJs and they humble me all the time.
Yeah.
They'll tell me, "Oh, you like that song? Oh yeah, well, this is who made it in 1972 and blah 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 and such studio." And I'm like, wow, so you know what I mean. But I do respect it, and I try to learn from everybody I talk to.
With that said, all right, everyone. So
All right,
peace out, guys. You're gonna see us very soon, guys. Take care, everybody.
Nice power move, Charles.
If anyone's watching, come see Sundiata on Saturday. You can look up on Facebook.
Yes, indeed. He's building on the 27th. Yes.
True. Bring your shorties on in to get some stories, or if you like stories yourself.
Sundiata, what's your handle, man? What's your if folks want to check you out?
The Tail Weaver. You can check me out on Amazon. You can go to Google. Sundiata the Tail Weaver. I have 2 published works, which is the Taylor McKay and Johnny Come Lately, and more to come.
On that note, peace, everybody.
All right,
Please.
Pleasure, guys.
Easy.
bye.